Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm really glad that you have decided to join me today as we take a look at the recently released and updated Sherpa C-23 Bravo by Blackbox Simulations. This aircraft came out maybe a week to 2 weeks ago while I was on a work trip down in Texas, and it was recently updated, I think before I even got back from Texas. They did it really fast. And since I'm a little late to the party, this will not be like a full-blown review. We're just going to do a flight in it together so you can kind of see the operations of it, and so you can find out if this aircraft is short field capable. Because after all, I am essentially the king of the Kodiak on YouTube. That is primarily my YouTube videos. So we got to take this off field and to somewhere small. And of course, I usually fly in Idaho Air Service colors. We are in none other than Boise, Idaho, parked at the... I hate that car right there. Always gets in the way. But we were parked here in Boise, Idaho at the Fire Center. So I figured it'd only be fitting if we fly in Forest Service colors. So with that, let's go ahead, hop in the aircraft, and get this flight underway. Okay, so here we are inside of the C-23 Sherpa. For the most part, we have already got this aircraft configured because I did fly it earlier today, just to make sure I was still familiar with it. So I did already get the aircraft set up, but just to give you guys a little bit of a familiarization of the aircraft. Pretty simple. Up above us we have anti-icing, pretty much everything involved in that. Here's the heart of our electronics. Fuel, how we fire up the engines and shut them down. All of our lights. Then we got our engine instruments here. If you want a GPS, this is the magic switch to do it. To get rid of the yokes is this right here, one on each side. Excuse me. Then we have circuit breakers on the left, also behind us on the right. One panel up here. Some hydraulics, radios, and then all the stuff to make the magic happen right here in the middle. You can bring the armrest up, and also the doors for the cockpit open as well. Over here is our door panel to operate all of the aircraft doors. And so now that the little familiarization's over and done with, let's go ahead and get the aircraft up and running. So to get the aircraft fired up, first things first, I like to do this in the off. I have a hard time figuring out the GPU, so I like to just have that set to off. And we're going to get our batteries turned on. Then, so we're going to fire up the aircraft. We're going to turn on the beacon and the navs. We'll arm the emergency lights and turn on the signs. So we're going to start engine number 2 first, so we'll get the booster pump for number 2 going, and we'll also close the emergency exits. And we'll just leave the door in the up position for now. Alright, so now that the fuel pump is on, to start this, we're going to go ahead and put this to... that's already in normal. So we're going to go to start. Once this clicks, we're going to move the ignition to on. And now we're going to watch this right here. It's going to stabilize just a little bit before 20, and then we're going to give it some fuel. Right there should be good, so we'll bring that up. And we got a good start. Stayed in the green. Then what I like to do is wait for our gas generator to stabilize, and that'll bring the propeller out a feather. And there it's stable, so we'll bring the prop up. And now that comes off, we will reset the generator and turn on the generator. So that's looking good there. And now I'm just going to wait for that prop to stabilize. Alright, so that should be getting pretty close to stabilizing, so now we'll turn booster pump number 1 on. Once again, flip the start up, wait for it to click, ignition on, and now we're going to do the same thing. We'll watch the gas gin, wait for it to come up to about 20. And there it is, so now we're going to introduce fuel. Alright, then we got a good start there for our temperature. Gas gin's coming up, so now we're going to wait for it to stabilize at about 70. There it is, so now we'll bring the props up. Alright, so then we'll go ahead, reset generator number 1. And we will flip it on. So that's good. There we go. Alright, so then looking up here, we'll go ahead, get the bleeds turned on. Windshield heat and the pitot-static system can come on as well. Ice lights can stay off, anti-icing vanes off, intakes off, propellers stay in the off. That looks good. Window is shut, nose wheel steering can go on. Let's hit the B button to set our altimeter. That was spacebar. That's good. Avionics can come on as well. And then now we're going to go ahead and close the ramp up. We'll turn the main fan on. Since we're on the ground, we'll leave that on recirc, and we'll put the Gasper fans on until we get flying through the air. Anti-fog is on. Autopilot set to our side. We're going to go ahead, arm heading, and climb. And then, unless something has changed, which I don't think it has because I've only been on the ground for a couple minutes, we're going to be departing runway 10 left here in Boise. And then we're going to fly roughly the Victor airway, should be 330, out to a reservoir. Then we're going to turn to the south, and we're going to land at a little 1,800-foot strip down in a wilderness area. And for departure, no flaps. We're going to be departing that way, and pretty much hook a right once it's safe to do so. Altitude for our flight's going to be 6,500 feet. Let's get that programmed in. Oh, that scared me for a second. Alright, and so with that, we are ready to taxi, so brakes on. Control lock can come off. Control lock hides right down here, by the way. Trims are set. And we'll get the weather radar set to standby. And so with that, let's get the taxi light turned on. And then I'm going to take us down to the end of the runway, and I will talk to you guys on departure. Okay, so we're coming up to the end of, or I guess the beginning of runway 10 left here in Boise, so we're going to go ahead and turn the landing light and strobe lights on, because we are cleared for departure. We're going to go ahead and switch the main, why won't it let me? Why is it being weird? Come on, there we go. We're going to switch our fan down to RAM for both. And we're also going to go to ground air for the source. Don't know why it would let me flip that while we were rolling, but that's the way it wanted to go. So now we're going to go ahead and bring the props all the way up, which that shouldn't have to stabilize too much. But what it will have to stabilize is once we bring these condition levers up to high. And then we have all of our lights on, flaps are set to 0, gears down, lights on. Everything else is looking good, so we are good for takeoff. We've been monitoring tower, haven't heard anyone get cleared on this runway. So let's wait for that bus to come out. Then we have more than enough runway, so I'm not too concerned about getting the most use out of this. So we forgot to click the weather radar on. Now we're going to bring the props up, Well, I guess the torque up to about 2.5. Wait for it to stabilize. There it is, full throttle, release brakes. And there's V1, rotate. Gonna pause at the rate, so gears coming up. Alright, and I'm passing 500 feet, so we're going to go ahead and click the autopilot on just to give us a hand. Flaps up, so now we're going to reduce power back just a hair. We're going to bring the props down to 1650. And we're going to turn the prop sync on. Alright, so we're looking for 1650 on the props. 3.7 for the torque, which is right about there. Props are a little low, but I'll accept it. And then now we're passing the VOR. So we're going to switch to approach and go ahead and begin a right-hand turn out of here. For a right-hand turn, we're looking to pick up the 255 radial off of the Boise VOR. We'll turn to probably, let's see, we do have a decent wind. So maybe we'll turn to about a 260. That should be good to get us on track. Got our co-pilot with us. Let's see, the fuel pumps are on. Normal, all that's looking good. We'll go ahead and turn the intakes on, because we will be landing on a dirt strip, and I don't want to forget about them. That's set to ram, ground, and ram as well. Anti-fog's good. So we're going up to 6,500 feet. One thing that would be nice in this aircraft is if we actually had like a sun visor. And we're 500 feet, so now what we're going to do is bring the props and the torque back. Bring the torque back to 3.5. Then we're going to go ahead and bring the props back to 1400. Then I'm going to keep the torque right about 3.5. According to the tutorial guide for the aircraft, for cruise we want to be at about 3.7 and 1400. I'm looking to save a little bit of gas, so we're going to go ahead and just do 3.5 and 1400. I have noticed the prop RPM does seem to fluctuate quite a bit in flight, so I just tried to initially set it at 1400 and then leave it as is. And so we should slowly start drifting to pick up this this Victor airway here out of Boise. If we don't, that's okay. We are doing a visual flight today, which we forgot to turn the transponder on. We are doing a visual flight today. We're just going to fly this way until we get to the reservoir, which is right on the other side of these hills. And then we're going to fly that way to our landing. Just to go over kind of like my initial impressions of the aircraft, if you're curious. I do think it's decent. If you buy the full package, it's like $50. I do think it is a little spendy from that end. But if you do go on the Blackbox website, they do actually offer it in packages, which I did not know. So you have the full package, which includes all of the different aircraft. Then you can get just the military variant, which is the one we're flying right now, the C-23. You can get just the 360, or just the 330. And those I think are both priced right about 30, let's see, it's either in pounds or euros. I don't know the difference because I'm in America. But so they're priced right about probably $30 to $35. Just kind of get things slowing up before we begin our descent. Because what I have noticed, this airplane is fast, and I have a hard time slowing it down. So I like to start slowing it down early. And I know we're going to want to go down to about 36, that's not what I want to adjust. About 3,600 would be, in theory, pattern altitude for where we're going. And if we hit the descend button, we'll descend at approximately 600 feet per minute, which should be good to do as of right now. I don't think we'll collide with any of that terrain. And where we're going should be right there. So I'm going to keep descending until we get clear of this terrain, and then we're going to pretty much just follow it on down. And now what I'm going to do is just get our heading lined up and swap us over to a heading hold. And why'd that kill descent? There we go, descent. And now for our course, the runway we're going to land on is runway 13. And I forget the actual, I think the actual heading's about a 126. But we're not going to worry too much about that. And so it's pretty much directly beside that. So right here, so what I like to do is just kind of follow this in, and then we turn right and then fly in that way. So I'll get my feet down on the rudders. We're going to go ahead and kill the autopilot. Let's clear that autopilot disconnect. And now I'm going to drop our throttle down to the buzzer for the gear. Then we're going to bring the props all the way up. That'll help slow us down some. And now that those have kind of synced up, go ahead and kill the prop sync so I don't forget about it. And then we can put in our first notch of flaps at about 148 indicated. Right now we're sitting about 155. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and give it flaps 5. And then I'm going to aim to fly pretty much straight right here. So let's go ahead and get that heading bug moved over. This should be pretty good right here. Then let's just work on trimming it out so it's a little nicer to fly. So we get about 1,300 feet till our minimum. Alright, and there's 130. So I'm going to let us keep slowing down, because like I said, if I let this thing keep up speed until I get really close, I have a hard time getting it slowed down. And with how short this strip is, I want to come in pretty much right above our stall speed. Which then, for this flight, we are pretty much maxed out. I think our available payload after everything on, when I pulled the blocks, was about 200 pounds. So we are heavy. So props up, condition is up, and I'm feeling pretty good. I don't think we need to overfly the airfield today. And realistically, we should. I know they're YouTube FAA. We're supposed to overfly it. We're just going to go ahead and land it. So I'm going to go ahead, put down gear. We're at about 130. Flaps 15 should be 138, so we're gonna go ahead and drop in flaps 15 as the gear comes down. Got 3 green. Coming up on 3,900 feet, so we're looking good. I would like to be a little bit lower. So I am gonna bring the throttle all the way back since we got the gear down and that alarm won't go off. 115 is our flaps 30 speed. And these airspeeds are indicated, by the way. And there's 115. Go ahead, drop in final notch of flaps. Taxi light is on since gear is down. Runway is just to our left and it is looking nice and clear. We're at 3,500 feet, coming up on 105 knots. And let's see if we can't get this the first time. So there's 100, so I'm going to start giving it a little bit of throttle. Not much though. Overshot it just a little, but plenty of room to correct it. We're at about 250 feet. Alright, here's coming up on 100. 195 knots, that's good for me. Ready to hit the brakes because we'll need them once we touch down. There's touchdown, going into beta, and brakes. Coming out of beta. And there you have it. This airplane can backcountry. Landing was definitely rough, not my best landing. Can't say I'm necessarily proud of it. But any landing in which we can reuse the airplane is a good one. And so normally I'd go ahead, park, and unload the aircraft. But in order to show you that this airplane can backcountry, we're going to take off with everything we brought on board. Which I'll show you what we brought on board when we get back to Boise because I don't want it to mess with our fuel. So we got 1,400 pounds on board. We burned right about 400 pounds getting over here, which is expected. So let's just make sure props are up. Condition levers are up. That's back at idle. Lights are on. Everything's looking good there. We're going to go ahead, flip this. Let the load master know we're going to be ready for takeoff. We did pick the correct runway, so there you go, YouTube FAA. We picked the right runway and it was clear. So now we're going to go ahead, turn around, and do it again. It's actually a really pretty little area. I'll put a link down below if you'd like to get this scenery found on the flightsim.to. That's where I get all of my mods from. Even got a nice little sign to show you where we are. Which, just for in case you're curious, that is where we are. It is over here in Idaho. I think it's like 50 miles west of Boise. It's a real nice flight. So we're going to take off with flaps 15, just because we are heavy. Then I do want to make sure we can use all of the runway available. So we want to avoid going into the drink. Give it just a little bit of brake. And let's turn. Sharp turn now. I love having rudder pedals. Now that I've gotten used to them, they are so nice for taxiing on the ground. Alright, so there's where we want to be, so let's go ahead and get that heading bug synced up. Alright, heading bug is synced with the runway. Props good. Condition is good, lights are on. Let's go ahead and bring up the props to about, or I guess the torque up to about 2.5. Wait for it to stabilize. And stabilize off the brakes, full throttle. Alright, and we're going to positive rate, so positive rate in 100 knots. Flap's going to come up to 5. I'll wait just a second. Gear can come up. Climbing through 300. There's 500. Go ahead, hit the autopilot. And then altitude, we're going to go ahead and make 7,500 feet. We'll put that in climb. And then now we'll go ahead and bring props back to about 3.5. And then, well, not props, torque back to about 3.5. Go ahead and bring the props back to 1650. And prop sync can go on. Then, let's see. We're going to have to wait to... Actually, we'll do a right-hand turn out of here. Say now we're going to have to wait to clear the terrain. We'll just go ahead and make a right-hand turn. Which it's not following the heading for some reason. There we go. Just a weird bug. Don't know why it likes to do stuff like that. So let's see. I don't want to fly runway heading. Let's see, runway 10. Let's see, 10 minus 90 is 1. So that'll put us 90 degrees to the runway. Let's go ahead and aim for a little under 45, and let's do a heading 55 back to Boise. Let's see there, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That should get us about heading 55. As we're coming through 5,500 feet. And then right there is where we left. So now we'll begin our way back to Boise. So we got prop sync on. Props are a little slow, but I'll take it. Torque's 3.5. That is good enough for me. Taxi light can come off. Okay, so everything's looking good there. For the ILS, start at 4,400 feet. So go ahead, put that in a descent. And we'll actually go ahead and just bring that down to the landing gear buzzer. Beautiful, beautiful sound. And then, let's see. This should be Nampa? Yeah, because I think Meridian's in the middle, if I remember right. So now, airport should be pretty much behind our compass. And let's see, I don't see any other aircraft around us. We do have live traffic, so someone might pop up. For the live traffic, if you go to the fly-by-wire installer for like the fly-by-wire A320 or the Salty 747, if you go down there, they have, I think it's called FSTL or something like that. It's the traffic program. Uses traffic data from Flight Radar 24, which is pretty cool. And it's actually really nice. It's really accurate too. I've actually checked it with a little nav map, and I pull up Flight Radar 24 on my phone, and it's really accurate, which is cool. So I like flying around with real traffic, and you get the real colors of the aircraft. Pretty cool, and it's free, which is awesome. It's actually better than the Just Flight one that I paid for, so I don't even use the Just Flight traffic anymore. I was really bummed out when I got that, and then I discovered the free one I'm using now and how much better that one is compared to the one I had to pay for. So let's see, Boise is... that should be the airport? Keyword should be, as everything kind of loads up in the distance. Coming through 6,300 feet, hit the magic B button. Then we are below our flap speed so we can go flaps 5 whenever we are ready. Yep, there's the airport because I see the ILS lights right now. Got the ILS for 10 right and then the flashing lights on 10 left visible. I believe in real life, if we wanted to go ahead and set up our decision height, I think it's right about 330, maybe 340. Can't remember the chart right now, haven't looked at it in a while. And so now we want to be ready to pick up that ILS, because it should start coming alive here real soon. And we're 17 miles out. Looks like we got an aircraft departing. And I'm going to go ahead turn us into like a 090, just so that way we're not such a far off from the actual heading we want to be at to pick this up, which looks like it actually turned us at the right time. Cool. So it looks like we might be just ever so slightly off. That's fine. Easily doable. We're 15 miles out. 140 knots. We can correct for that. Let's see, it's coming out of 140 at 5. Correction angle shouldn't need to be crazy. Let's see, being 15 miles out, we'll go ahead and drop flaps 5. Go ahead and slow down to about 125. Then we'll go ahead and bring our props up as well. So prop and condition levers are set to full. I almost think we're still drifting a little bit to the left. I'm going to give it about 3 degrees more to the right. Coming up on our altitude. We're still below glide. Coming up on 130 knots. Prop sync can go off. Let the loadmaster know we're fixing to land. Go ahead and turn the intakes off, don't need them anymore. We actually never turned off the air when we landed earlier, so that's good. And we just blew right past our route. So let's go ahead and blew right past where we wanted to do because I got distracted. It wasn't moving at all, and then it moved really fast. Figures. There's our altitude, 125. Let's go ahead and give it some throttle. Let's wait to pick up glide. Still a little to the right, let's knock it over one more notch. Coming up on 10 miles out. So I'm going to go ahead and drop the landing gear and give us flaps 15. Now I'm going to let it slow to about 105 now. And let's get those doors closed since we're going to be landing. I thought it sounded a little loud. And as that lines up, we're going to go ahead and hit approach. Let's wait for it to get a little bit closer. We're still below glide. Coming up on 107 knots. Activating approach. Glide slope is armed. There's 105 knots. Go ahead, drop in flaps 30. Then we'll stabilize right about 95 knots for now. in our altitude, I will go ahead and reduce to field, which is right about 2800. And we go ahead and turn on the taxi lights as well. So we're right about 95 knots. Sink our heading bug. Then obviously it is a beautiful day here in Boise. So, you know, we could easily fly this visual. We could also fly it by hand on the ILS, which is what I normally do. But I wanted to go ahead and show you guys that you can fly it on the autopilot for an ILS. That way, if that's something you want to do, you know the aircraft's capable of it. So I'm going to just give it a little bit of rudder now. Kind of get us lined up with the runway. Then we should pick up the glide slope here in a second. Glide slope is green. So now we'll reduce throttle. Alright, there's 1,000 feet. Alright, I'm about 750 feet up, so I'm going to go ahead and disconnect autopilot and yaw damper. The other thing I have found is when you do that, sometimes the trim goes haywire. Which is why I wanted to disconnect it at 750 feet and not at like 100 feet. So as you saw there, we went from real nice and stable to a little bit crazy. So there we go, got that all figured out. We drift a little to the left, that's okay. Bring it back on track here in a second. We're also getting a little low and a little slow, but we can fix that. Alright, so now we're on glide path. Let's start descending again. We're still a little to the left. Okay, I'm about to be high. And we're coming up on 100 feet. Aw, man. Messing up this landing. This is my worst one I've had here in Boise. Man, we did so good. That is definitely my worst landing I've had here at Boise yet. And yep, so now let's turn it around so we can get to that taxiway. The other thing with this aircraft in terms of flight dynamics is I'm really good at floating it down a runway if I'm not careful. As we kind of saw, we definitely, when we clicked off autopilot, lost our nice stabilized approach, which I knew was going to happen because that is normally what happens with this aircraft. Let's see, no one coming that way. Let's see, is anyone down there? If there is, I don't see him. Which, let's see, I do have a tendency to float this aircraft. Oh yeah, I remember what I was talking about now. Reset. But, I'm so easily distracted tonight. Let's see, float the aircraft. Flight dynamics. Oh yeah, so when the autopilot comes off, it, for whatever reason, does not send that message to the trim at whatever the autopilot trimmed out the airplane to be. You kick that autopilot off and the aircraft does whatever it wants. Then strobe lights, land lights, and then I like to go ahead, turn the fuel pumps off. Emergency lights can come off from armed. Come up here. Heats can go off. So I'm going to park this a little funky here to try and get a nice picture for the video. Let's see, coming up right about there. So I want the airplane to be kind of angled. So let's kick it right now. And I think that'll be good. So brakes on. Parking brake is on. Feathered props. That was not the props. My bad. There we go. Feather the props. Then avionics can go off. Generator can go off, and I like to reset it. Off and reset. That's good. Just verify off, 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 shut, and shut. That's beautiful. Just for funsies, let's flip that up to. Actually, those are turned off. Never mind. That's looking good. That is down and armed. Off, off, off. Okay, taxi lights. Nav lights. We'll go ahead and turn the signs off. Those are already off. And now we will cut the fuel. And we'll go ahead and watch the prop stop. Why not? There you go. That's kind of a nice view, right? Then there's the prop, so beacon and nav. Already shut off the navs. Back up here where we belong. While battery power's on, let's lower the ramp. Then I like to open the forward emergency, both the front and back, and we'll go ahead and open that para door as well. So just verify all of our airs off. Main fan can go off, off, off. And then now, since we're not going to be steering on the ground anymore, ground steering can go off as well. And then battery right and battery left. And there you have it. That is the flight. So like I told you, I'd show you that we were maxed out on cargo. We had 1,800 here in the forward, 2,000 in the center, and 2,500 in the rear, which pretty much put us right in the middle of our envelope. And See, we started out with about 1,900 pounds. Not 19. No, was it? No, 1,400 pounds of fuel. So we're sitting about 22.4. Max weight's 22.9. So with that, I'm going to go ahead, hop out of the airplane, get a real nice picture, and I'll talk to you in a second. Alright, so there you have it. We are unloaded and powered off, back on the ground in Boise. I hope you guys enjoyed that flight. If you want to keep seeing me fly this loop to do similar reviews with other aircraft, please let me know. You can even drop a suggestion on what aircraft you want me to fly. If you do have any feedback, please leave it down below. I take positive and negative feedback. Give the video a like, give it a dislike, but if you do dislike it, please give me feedback so I know how next time maybe you want to drop a like instead of a dislike. Would love to know what I can do to make this better. Anyway, without further ado, thank you very much for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you taking the time out of your life to spend it with me on this flight. And as always, stay classy, stay beautiful, stay awesome. I will see you on the next one.